So here we are. We just reached St. Francis Basilica. So this is one of the most important churches all over the world. This is a papal basilica, as several other ones. The four main, they are in Rome, and this is a minor basilica that is owned by the friars, Franciscan friars. But you know, actually this is a property of the Vatican City. So, papal church, patriarchal church at first, and then papal basilica. You will see, in fact, the symbol of the Vatican over that door, together with the symbol of the Franciscan order that is made of the two arms of Francis and Jesus crossed like this. So Jesus with the wound of the cross, St. Francis with the stigmatas. This church was built just soon after the death of St. Francis. St. Francis lived between 11 and 1200s, and he lived for 44 years, and so that was a short life, but an incredible life. Mostly the second part of his life that was totally inspired by the gospel. So Francis was born in a very rich, wealthy family, and after the war, because he was a soldier, he was involved in the war. He was imprisoned during the war, and then after the war, he came back from the prison and he was totally changed. He started then to read the gospel, to follow the gospel, and to try to live the gospel. And he wanted to follow the gospel in poverty. That's why he decided to live away, to give away everything, even his clothes. He did that in a very special moment of his life when he decided to strip away everything, even his clothes. That's why then he was dressing the tunic, the very simple indumenta that you will see in the church, in the relics chapel. So that is a simple robe that was made of simple fabrics, held on the waist just by a simple rope, having 3 knots. Francis was keeping next to his body these 3 knots that were reminded to him the 3 values to follow, that are still now reminded by the friars, the Franciscan friars. You can notice very well them on the robe that they wear, and they are symbolizing poverty, chastity, and obedience. Then this church was built less than 2 years after the death of St. Francis, that died in 1226, October the 4th. So that is the very big feast here in the town, in front of this church, the day when he passed away. And St. Francis, then, he was canonized in 1228, in July. And the day after the canonization that was held here in Assisi and not in Rome, the Pope Gregory, wanted the foundation of a church to host his tomb. And he laid here the foundation stone. To build a special church, as he said, that had to be burial for St. Francis and the place for the papal preaching. That's why here we have 2 different churches, 2 different places on 2 levels. Lower Basilica at the bottom and Upper Basilica over there. So in the Lower Basilica it is possible to visit underground the crypt where there's still now the coffin with the body of St. Francis. The body is not incorrupted, so there's the corruption, and that could be attested in 1800s when the tomb was reopened. Then next year there will be a very big deal, such as the 8th centenary after the death of St. Francis, 2026. So a very important moment for all the Franciscan order And that's why they decided to expose again the body of St. Francis. So, to the veneration by the faithful. So he will be over there in front of the lower altar of the lower basilica. We don't know actually how they will do that because the coffin is underground, but let's see what will happen. This year we are celebrating instead 800 years after the composition of the Canticle of the Creatures. That was a wonderful laud to God. This is Santa Maria Maggiore Church, that is the place where St. Francis gave away his clothes to renounce to the gods. He did that here because here there was the bishop palace, and the bishop was a friend of him that introduced him in the church. And here then there's even the place where Carlo Acutis is buried. Carlo, the new saint, he was just canonized on the 7th of September. Yes. He is a teenager. He was a teenager. He passed away in 2006 and he was canonized in 2020, beatified, sorry. And then the canonization process was so fast as he was canonized in the minimum time, that is 5 years. For the miracles that there were, so the first miracle happened in Brazil, and that was the one that made the beatification process, and the other one that happened 3 years ago in Florence. A girl was healed after a car accident. She was injured by a car and she had a cranium trauma. And after 1 day of prayer of her mom, she was totally healed. So this was then what made the process for the canonization. You will see his body exposed here, and you will see him wearing teenager's clothes. So very, very contemporary, and he was a normal guy. He was born he lived in Milan, but this was his preferred place. This was the summer holidays place, so that's why when he was dying, he died in a so quick time. He asked to be buried here in Assisi. At first his body was at the cemetery, and then he was moved for the beatification to this church. Okay?